The grand chamber of the Galactic Concord shimmered like a cathedral suspended in glass, massive, sterile, and cold enough to hum with silence. Rows of translucent seats floated in perfect orbits around the central speaking pit, occupied by representatives from 100 species. Their robes rustled without wind, woven from fibers not found on any planet, and their expressions were carved in polished stone, except for the ones who'd evolved beyond faces altogether. What passed for democracy among the stars was about to take another step toward empire. The chamber lights dimmed as a three-eyed Orosian moderator unfurled a scroll from the archive drone and clicked his mandibles together in ceremonial cadence. Proceedings for Resolution 721. B. Regarding Earth. Proposal. Strategic Demographic Recalibration. That was the phrase they used, demographic recalibration. It sounded cleaner than what it meant. The scheduled execution of 1 billion human women. Not all of them. Just enough to frighten the rest into compliance, into sterilization quotas, into behaving. The votes would begin shortly. High Arbiter Lumacore of the Hydery Enclave rose first, floating inches off her dais, her voice a perfect harmony of flutes. We have tolerated the human anomaly long enough. In 4 centuries, they have gone from tribal savagery to deep space encryption, from steam to sentient code. And now, unchecked birth rates. 1 billion new births in a decade. Left alone, they will overwhelm the sector. This is not extermination. It is equilibrium. Murmurs echoed in languages made of scent, static, and pulse. Some nodded. Some winced. None disagreed out loud. At the edge of the gallery, the insectoid minister A.R. Juin, from Drake, 12 clicked his serrated limbs against the dais. Their emotional reproduction is inefficient, unpredictable. They breed from grief, from joy, from anger. Entire cities born because someone said, "I miss you." Is this a species or a storm? Laughter flickered, polite and unsettling. The sort of laughter that didn't shake shoulders or brighten eyes. One representative from the gas world colony of Near-Raven whistled through her tendrils. "I visited Earth once. They offered me cookies and told me they loved sunsets. And then I saw a child stab a soldier with a fork." More laughter, but this time tighter. No human was present in the hall. There were no representatives, no appeals. Earth hadn't been invited, not because they were forgotten, because they were watched. And still, the vote moved forward. Somewhere on the pale blue beneath that star-smeared sky, no one knew. Not officially. But something seeped through the cracks in the dark. A man named David Hale sat on a park bench in Concord, New Hampshire. Mid-50s. Wool coat zipped tight to the chin. Wind brushing his salt and pepper hair like ghost fingers. He stared straight ahead, eyes not really fixed on anything, like he'd just remembered a horror and couldn't decide if it was real. Beside him, a little girl sat cross-legged on the bench, coat a size too big. Her name was Lily. 7 years old. She was drawing a cat on her lunch bag with a red crayon, tongue tucked out, utterly focused. She looked up. "Mr. David," she asked, chewing on the crayon, "are they going to hang us too?" He didn't answer. She squinted. "You said they don't like girls." He nodded slowly. "They don't like anything that grows wild." She looked at her lunch bag. "Like my cat." "Exactly like your cat." Wind passed through the maples, brittle with January. A snowflake landed on her nose. She giggled. Elsewhere, miles, years, stars away, the chamber vote began. Names were called. Species spoke. One by one, they raised their sigils. Hydery, Enclave, aye. Drake, 12 Sovereignty, aye. Near-Raven Collective, abstain. Some abstained not because they doubted the morality, but because they feared the cost. Humans, after all, had done the unthinkable. Escaped death, outsmarted machines, survived planets designed to kill. But those were anecdotes, exceptions, not policy. Then came the vote from the Blorian Alliance. A slow, rolling silence followed it. They were old, ancient even. Their member, a creature shaped like a spiraled harp, finally spoke. "Are we sure?" it asked, voice like a cello dropped in fog. "You may burn a nest, yes. But humans, they do not flee. They multiply in ash. The chamber paused. For one whole minute, the stars beyond the hall flickered through the glass ceiling. Somewhere, a comet slashed across the void, trailing light like it was bleeding out the sky. Then the final vote was cast. Resolution passes. And just like that, the death of 1 billion was scheduled. They were to be hung, symbolically. A ritual act. High orbit hangings, broadcast across systems, to teach submission through serenity. 1 billion was a round number. Satisfying. Efficient. No human voice replied. No scream. No plea. But something did shift. Back on Earth, Lily was looking at the sky now. "You think stars can cry?" she asked. David glanced at her. Something in his chest moved. Like a locked door creaked open in his ribs. He pulled a folded paper from his coat pocket. A message. It had come through an old ham radio. A garbled series of pulses no one in this generation would recognize. But David had spent 20 years in a bunker during the silent conflict. He recognized the code. The message was only 5 words. "Let them come. Release him." He stood slowly. Lily looked up. "Where are you going?" He crouched and brushed a fleck of snow from her nose. "I'm going to open a door," he said. She tilted her head. "Where does it lead?" He smiled just barely. "To a man who doesn't like being needed." Beneath the Atlantic Ocean, beneath concrete and titanium vaults, beneath denial and bureaucracy, a light turned green for the first time in 50 years. The vault was known by 1,000 code names, but only one mattered now. Hellshade. The man inside hadn't spoken to anyone in decades. He sat cross-legged on the floor, bare chest scarred with old war scripts and burns from knives no longer used. His hair was long now, his breath silent. A low beep echoed in the chamber. The vault door hissed. He opened one eye. And for the first time in half a century, he spoke. Just one word. Showtime. On the moon of Seer Rexus, where the council broadcast its decisions to lesser species, an old transmitter picked up a garbled message. The technician tapped his console, confused. The message repeated. 5 words. Plain. Ironic. Earth English. "Thank you for your invitation." The technician blinked. Then his screen went black. And far above, the stars shifted again, just slightly, like the galaxy had taken one breath too many. A breath it might not get back. The Galactic shuttle slid into Earth's atmosphere with all the grace of a high-ranking insult. Sleek, silver, and branded with the sigil of the Concord Tribunal, it moved through the sky like a scalpel headed for soft skin. Below it, North America sprawled in winter quiet, iced roads, low-burning hearts, white roofs reflecting nothing but stillness. The shuttle touched down in what used to be Washington, D.C., now neutral territory Delta 7, where no flags were flown, only treaties hung in silent glass cases. The sky was overcast. The snow was light. The tension had already arrived. 2 Concord officials stepped down from the ramp. One was A.R. Juin, Minister of Enforcement from Drake, 12, his armored carapace clicking with every step. The other, taller and semi-transparent, was Counselor Felix from the vaporous species Thurny. Felix shimmered like a mirage in robes that changed color with his mood. Today pale gray-green, the color of arrogant disapproval. They were greeted by one man. Alone. No guards. No ceremony. Just a small folding table on a snow-dusted sidewalk, and a steaming thermos of what appeared to be coffee. James Hellman rose from his chair with a practiced ease that said Midwest hospitality, nuclear-level patience. His dark hair was neatly combed. His suit was pressed. His hands were bare, pink from a cold, and clasped in front of him like a pastor waiting to forgive a crime. He smiled. "Welcome to Earth," he said, cheerful. "Muffin." A.R. Juin blinked all 6 eyes at once. "We are here to discuss the execution protocols." "Exactly," Hellman replied. "You'll want the banana nut. They travel well." Felix gave a soundless exhale. "Are you mocking this council?" Hellman tilted his head, thoughtful. "No. I only mock things with a sense of humor." Muffin. Neither took one. Hellman sat back down and gestured to the chairs across the table. "Please." I've heated the seat cushions. My people find diplomacy works better when the butt's warm. They did not sit. Hellman waited 3 seconds longer, then reached into his coat and pulled out a manila folder, the kind that shouldn't exist in a post-digital age. He placed it on the table, tapped it twice. "This," he said, "is everything you asked for. Execution sites, transportation nodes, volunteer lists, DNA index for approved call parameters. You'll find we've been very compliant." Felix flickered with disbelief. "You expect us to believe this is your species' full cooperation?" Hellman nodded, earnest. "Of course not. I just expect you to enjoy believing it." Arjun stepped closer. "You hide behind smiles, jokes, but your species is undisciplined. You breed from irrational attachments." Hellman leaned forward, folding his hands. "So does poetry. No species has resisted a call order and survived," Arjun hissed. "We are only here out of caution." "Caution's healthy," Hellman said softly. "Most accidents happen in the kitchen." That made Arjun pause. Felix gave a rippling scoff. "We scanned your planet. There's no military activity, no call to arms. You are planting crops, rebuilding playgrounds. This is not how a civilization resists genocide." Hellman offered a thin smile. "No, it's how we prepare for company." He stood slowly. The air around him was still quiet, like a snowflake deciding not to fall. His breath misted white. "You came here expecting defiance," he said. "You expected riots, chaos. But humans, real humans, we don't rage when we lose. We get very, very still." He stepped out from behind the table. His shoes crunched in the snow. "And when we're still, we plan." Felix tilted his head. "Are you threatening us?" "No," Hellman said. "Not yet." Arjun sneered. "Then what are you?" Hellman looked up, as if reading something in the clouds. Then, with a polite nod, he answered, "I'm the man who tells the wolves when the fences are down." The table burst into flames. Not exploded, burned. Blue flame, silent, clean. The folder vanished in seconds. The snow around it hissed. Hellman didn't move. Felix recoiled. Arjun raised a limb. "What is this?" Hellman gestured to the smoldering ashes. "That was a list of what we could have done. A decoy. A distraction. You never asked the right question. You assumed the trap was the humans you could see." Felix's color shifted to a warning red. "And what is the trap?" Hellman glanced down the avenue. Across the frozen landscape, a group of children were building a snowman. They weren't watching. They didn't need to. "You'll know," he said, "when the jazz starts playing." The wind picked up, carrying laughter and the scent of pine. Somewhere far off, a train whistle moaned, a long, lonesome sound. Hellman turned his back on them. He walked down the street like it was a Sunday morning, hands in pockets, whistling. Felix hissed, "Where are you going?" Hellman didn't look back. "To brew another pot." And then quieter, "You'll need it." In a chamber far above Earth, the Galactic High Admiral watched the footage. She was a creature of ice and metal, all angles and logic. Her name was Tezhari of the Spinal Wars, and she did not believe in fear. But as she replayed the moment the Earthman smiled after setting fire to an intergalactic execution plan, something ancient stirred in her gut. Not fear, memory. She tapped a claw against her console. "Get me the archived file," she said. "Which file, Admiral?" "The one they sealed after the Battle of Io." "You mean the Ghost Project?" "No," she said. "The one before that. The one where they lost no soldiers, but gained a war." A long pause. Then a reply. "Retrieving Project Hellshade. Warning. Record access may trigger species-wide alert protocols." She stared at the screen. "Do it." The console flashed. A document unsealed. One line blinked on screen. "If diplomacy fails, send Hellman. If Hellman fails, unleash him." She whispered, "Unleash who?" The screen went black, then flickered, then lit up with one phrase. "He has already been released." Below, James Hellman walked into a small diner just off the Potomac. The waitress knew him. She poured his usual, black, no sugar. He sipped, eyes scanning a city, pretending nothing had changed. Outside, a single feather fell from a lamppost. It landed on snow, then melted into it like memory. Hellman pulled out a notebook, began writing. The first line read, "They voted to hang our women. We voted to make that their legacy." He underlined it once, then smiled. And somewhere, beneath water, bone, and silence, he stirred. The Concorde execution vessel Axiom's Mercy hung in high orbit above Earth, a white crescent dagger cutting across the dark. Within its primary bay, a gallows unlike any seen before stretched wide, modular, efficient, horrifying in its elegance. It could hang 1,000 at once, 10 rows deep, precisely timed, with gravity assist fields to prevent aesthetic interruptions. The executions were set to broadcast system-wide. A message to the galaxy. This is what happens when emotion outweighs order. Wires hummed. Steel gleamed. The silence of space was shattered only by the calm buzz of death preparing itself. On Deck 12, the women waited. 1,000 of them. Chosen randomly. Daughters. Scientists. Grandmothers, bakers, soldiers, all tethered with luminous cuffs that pulsed in rhythm with the ship's heartbeat. Some cried, some sang, some simply stared ahead, their eyes wide open but not seeing. They were the first drop in the billion-corpse ocean. The guards, 14 Draken enforcers, stood still, proud in their jagged armor. One of them leaned in close to a human girl barely out of her teens, his voice rasping like a saw on glass. "You should be grateful," he said. "You'll be remembered. The rest will only be data." The girl didn't flinch, just whispered, "He's coming." The guard frowned. "Who?" Her lips curled upward. Not quite a smile. Not quite defiance. "The man you forgot." At 0300 Standard Galactic Time, every camera on the ship blinked. Just once. A flicker. Like the vessel had blinked. 12 seconds later, the outer door of Cargo Bay 9 slid open. Without authorization. Without clearance. The first guard to check it found nothing. The second never returned. The third slipped on blood he hadn't noticed until it was under him. Something passed through the hallways of the Axiom's Mercy. Not fast. Not loud. But wrong. A breath where there should be none. A shadow that turned when it shouldn't. Some of the guards began to whisper. Others tightened their grips on weapons. They activated bioscans. Nothing. They scanned again. Still nothing. But then, a single body fell from the ceiling. One of their own. Eyes wide. No wounds. No noise. Just stopped. In the execution chamber, a technician muttered, "We've lost visual on Corridor Kappa 12. His superior leaned over. "There is no Kappa 12. The technician stared. "Then what's feeding this?" The screen fuzzed. Then cleared. And a man walked into view. Barefoot. Shirtless. Skin weathered, scarred, with a lean muscle frame built by war, not by aesthetics. His hair hung loose. His eyes, black as moonless ocean, scanned nothing, yet missed nothing. He didn't carry a weapon. He was one. One of the guards watching the feed blinked. "Who is that?" Another answered in a whisper. "Hellshade." Someone laughed nervously. "That's a myth. An old Earth story. A soldier who never sleeps. A man built to end wars by starting silence." The screen fuzzed again. When it cleared, the man had vanished. Except, a whisper echoed through the comms. No source. No location. Just 5 syllables. "Stop me if you can." The main execution platform entered lockdown mode. Sirens wailed. Lights snapped to blood red. Shields were raised. Emergency power diverted. Everything bristled. And still, they couldn't find him. One guard sprinted down Corridor Delta. His footfalls echoed. Then stopped. Because there, at the corridor's end, barefoot in snow that hadn't been there 5 seconds ago, stood the man. Hellshade. The guard lifted his plasma rifle. "Identify." Hellshade raised one hand. His fingers were wrapped in something that looked like prayer beads, except they shimmered with atomic codes. He snapped them. The lights died. When they returned, Only one thing remained on the floor, the guard's helmet, still smoking. The rest of him had disappeared. Meanwhile, the 1,000 women on deck 12 heard nothing. But some of them began to smile. Not wide, not loud, just the curve of someone who recognized thunder coming before it cracked. "Do you think he'll come here?" one woman asked. "He's already here," the girl replied. In the command deck, Arjun watched the reports roll in. Systems failing, security gone. And then the ship's internal gravity shifted upward before violently snapping back. The bodies of 5 guards were found impaled on the ceiling beams. Blood rained down like red mist on chrome. The admiral screamed, "What is this?" A voice answered from every speaker. "Hellman. Calm. Cordial. I'd like to file a complaint," he said. "Your execution vessel has a pest problem. I sent an exterminator." The admiral's face froze. "You released him?" "I didn't," Hellman replied. "You did. The moment you voted. The moment you thought we wouldn't bleed for each other." The lights across the ship turned off. Emergency red bathed the corridors. Then footsteps. One at a time. In the execution bay, the women looked up. A single vent above them unscrewed. Hellshade dropped down. Not leaped. Not lunged. He lowered, like a whisper falling into a room. No one screamed. Not even the guards. One of them moved. A flicker of motion. His rifle charged. Hellshade turned. The man's weapon fell apart in his hands. So did his hands. Hellshade moved through the guards like a shadow in a mirror. They fired. They missed. Or didn't. But it made no difference. Every blow that landed felt like trying to stop wind with paper. One of the guards finally saw it. It wasn't rage in his eyes. It was grief. Like he'd already buried everyone, including himself. Hellshade unlocked the cuffs. They clattered to the floor in sequence, like a song of metal and mercy. One woman stepped forward. Her lip trembled. "Who are you?" she asked. He looked at her. Not down. Not over. At her. And in a voice so quiet it hurt, he said, "I'm what gets sent when you decide our daughters are dispensable." He walked toward the doors. They opened before him. The alarm stopped. The ship's comms buzzed again. Felix's voice now. Panicked. "He's hijacking the ship. Send fleet backup. Now." But there was no one to send. Because every fleet within 10 light years had gone silent. Every outpost. Every station. The stars weren't quiet. They were listening. Felix screamed, "Why isn't he leaving? He got the women. He has them. Why is he still on board?" Hellman's voice returned. Soft. Slow. "Oh, you thought that was why he came?" The Axiom's mercy shook. All over the ship, windows exploded outward, not broken, peeled. One by one, the control stations shut down. Not destroyed. Just turned off. Hellshade entered the bridge. Alone. No blood on him. No wounds. Only breath. The Admiral raised a blaster to his own throat. Hellshade stopped him with a glance. "No escape," he said. "You live. You watch. You remember." He walked to the control panel. Pressed one button. The ship began to move. Toward the Galactic Council's seat of power. Back to the place where the vote was cast. Back to the wolves. Back to judgment. And as it turned, the ship's own comms echoed one final message to the council. "You thought he was just a man. You were wrong. He's the ghost your nightmares pray to." Somewhere on a distant planet, a child saw the stars shift and whispered, "Mama, why is the sky blinking?" Her mother didn't answer. Because the sky wasn't blinking. It was bracing. The Axiom's mercy moved like a falling cathedral, its hull scorched, engines cracked but relentless. Pushed not by fuel, but by the weight of 1 billion ghosts behind it. It had left orbit days ago, but every system within the Concord Starline core now tracked it. Some with dread, some with rage, and others, at last, with a thing no one in the Galactic Council had ever imagined they would feel toward humans. Awe. Hellshade stood at the bow of the ship, just beneath the main viewport, his hands clasped behind his back. His shirt was gone. His skin, scarred like a battlefield's memory, breathed with the hum of the engine. Not armored. Not armed. He wore no badge, no rank. Yet the ship moved around him, not because he piloted it, but because it obeyed him, as if it knew. He didn't sleep. He didn't eat. He waited. In the seat behind him, a woman, one of 1,000 he had rescued, wrapped a thermal blanket tighter around her shoulders. Her name was Elise Monroe, 37, former teacher. She'd watched 2 of her sisters die during the Earth sieges. She'd buried child with her own hands in red soil during the off-world famine. And yet, for some reason, this man unnerved her more than all of that. Not because of what he did, but because of what he didn't say. "What happens when we arrive?" she asked softly. Hellshade didn't turn. He simply replied, "Balance." Outside, the stars began to thin. They were nearing the Concorde's heart system, a ring of planetoids, each one wrapped in policy and threat. Floating fortresses, defense moons, energy nets so dense they crackled with static from parsecs away. The Council had known the ship was coming. What they hadn't known was what followed it. Behind the Axiom's mercy came silence. Not one human warship, not 5, but billions. Vessels made from asteroid cores, from melted remnants of old Earth carriers, from bones of machines the galaxy had forgotten. Each ship moved without lights, without signal. They were ghosts made steel, powered not by stars, but by fury that had fermented for generations. 3 billion human soldiers rode those ships. Some were born in bunkers, some in orbit, some in exile, and all of them had volunteered. Above the Concorde Central Dome, alarms screamed in a dozen species languages. On the ground, citizens looked up and saw the sky split, not in flame, not in battle, but in silence. A wall of ships, black as memory. Counselor Velix, trembling in his vaporous form, turned to A.R. Juan. They didn't fire. Why haven't they fired? A.R. Juan, for once, had no answer. Then the screens blinked to life. Hellman appeared, seated at a cafe table in front of the Washington Monument, sipping coffee as though nothing had happened. A jazz tune played softly in the background, brassy, slow, melancholic. Miles Davis. Unmistakable. "Hello again," Hellman said. He wore a cardigan. His smile was tired. "I've been thinking about forgiveness," he began casually. "It's a lovely concept. Works well in books. Has a beautiful ring to it. But you know what it never includes." He paused. Consequence. A flick of his wrist. The feed changed. The Council chamber saw itself from above. Live feed from orbit. All their ships, all their satellites, suddenly dark. "We never wanted war," Hellman said. "We never asked to lead. All we did was survive. Over and over. And every time we crawled out of a rubble, someone called us a problem." The camera zoomed in. Hellshade was walking toward the Council Hall. No guards. No resistance. Just a man walking through a city frozen with fear. Hellman leaned back in his chair. "We're not here to conquer. We're not here to destroy." He smiled wider, eyes sharp now. "We're here to finish your story." The screen cut. Inside the chamber, panic erupted. Counselors scattered. One screamed for evacuation. Another tried to activate a fleet override. Nothing responded. Every system had gone black the moment Jazz touched orbit. Hellshade passed through the marble gates like smoke. The guards at the door stood, trembling, unsure if they were still part of the world. He passed by them, not because they let him, because they couldn't stop him. Inside the chamber, Velix shouted, "What do you want?" Hellshade reached the center dais, looked up, and spoke, his voice low, like thunder whispered. "You tried to erase our mothers." Silence. "You turned love into a weapon, grief into currency, and you did it thinking we'd beg." He stepped forward. No more begging. He held out his palm. A single button hovered above it. Old tech. Mechanical. Elise, watching from the ship, realized it wasn't a weapon. It was a trigger. Not for destruction. For memory. Hellshade pressed it. Above every world in the Concorde system, every screen lit up, and began playing footage. Of hangings. Of screams. Of the vote. Of the laughter that followed. Every citizen. Every child. Every soldier. All watched, and all saw, not a species of monsters, but humans weeping, holding each other, singing before dying. Then the feed cut to earth. Millions of them, standing silently, holding signs. Some read, "We're still here. We remember your vote. Your silence trained us." Then the last image. A child, no older than 4, looking up at the sky, whispering, "Bring him back." Counselor Lumacor fell to her knees. Felix collapsed into mist. Arjun stood rigid. "You will kill us all." Hellshade stepped closer. "No, that's your instinct, not ours." He turned his back and walked away. No attack, no vengeance, just silence. Before he left, he said one final sentence. "History has a new author now." Back on Earth, Hellman finished his coffee. He stood, and in a quiet voice, told the wind, "Justice isn't the bullet. It's the pause before you choose not to pull the trigger." Above, the human ships began to turn. Billions of them. No weapons fired. No invasions. Just the image left behind. A man who walked into the fire and walked out with it. In the Concord archives, a new entry was created that day. Locked. Restricted. Untranslated. Its title read, "The Day the Sky Cracked Open." Its first sentence, "They sent Hellshade to stop war." But what returned was peace wrapped in warning. And beneath it, one phrase burned into digital stone. "We are the kind ones. Remember that, before we choose not to be."